Welcome to NuRevelations TV, Life, Work, and Love by Design. My name is Darlene Sheardon, and today I have a very, very special guest, Eric Ayala. Eric Ayala is a multi-talented writer, director, actor, author, singer, and producer. He's written many books under 3 pen names. I met him under the pen name of E.L. Ayala. And under that pen name, he wrote many inspirational books, and one of them is called Restoration, followed by Will You Be Made Whole, which also was a stage play, followed by Alabaster Box, 2 Women, 1 Struggle. Also, If I Should Die Before I Wake, and there's another book yet to be produced, and that is titled An Issue of Blood. In 2007, Eric entered a contest for women writers and actually won that contest. His pen name was Erica Lewis. He won a national book deal, and under that book deal, he wrote 2 books, Arlington Heights and Darkness in the Mirror. 2010, he facilitated a writing workshop, and he was introduced to Dr. William Shells of Hopewell Baptist Church, and there he wrote a play for Black History Month entitled Strange Fruit, a fantastic play, and I was able to be part of the audience. Also, with that collaboration, he wrote Sunday Morning Rapture, which was featured at the Fox Theater here in Atlanta, Georgia in 2011. He's also finished a book, The Shepherd Must Smell Like the Sheep. In 2011, under the name of Louis Erickson, he has written Outcast, also The Mansion, and we're expecting another book, Avenging Alex. Eric also has stage and musical credits, and some of these are Music Man, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamgirls, Porgy and Bess, Pacific Overtures, and many, many more. In his free time, he freelances, works with other authors, and playwrights. Eric Ayala, I want to welcome you to NuRevelations TV. Again, Life, Work, and Love by Design.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, everybody, I believe, has a divine design in their life. Describe your life divine design.
Well, I think for me, it has been the written word. I've always been writing something or other ever since I was little. I am the oldest of 5 children.
Okay.
And my mother was a single parent, and as such, it was my responsibility to help with my sisters and brothers. So I didn't have a lot of free time. I didn't have a lot of play time. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have friends. I didn't have friends until I was 21 years old. So to mitigate that and to offset that, I created characters. And in creating these characters, they became stories.
Okay.
Short stories at first. The short stories became longer stories, and then I started drawing the characters. And so I filled up the space in my head with all these different characters and all these different stories. And I feel like my divine design is the written word. And like I said, ever since I can remember, I've always been writing something.
Now that is amazing. So you sort of answered the question when it manifested. It manifested as a child. It just became a natural thing for you.
Yeah, I found out years later, as I grew up, that somebody told my mother when I was little that I was strange.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll take that. I mean, it manifested itself with all the different things that I've been able to do, so I'll take strange.
Okay. Okay. Well, what was the first piece you wrote, and what was the inspiration behind it?
The very first piece I wrote, I was a sophomore in high school, and I took a senior elective creative writing class, and we were asked to write plays.
Okay.
And the play that would get top honors would be done for the senior class. So I wrote a play called Christmas Murders.
Okay. Christmas Murders.
Christmas Murders. And being a sophomore, the teacher first tried to talk me out of it because it was an elective senior class, and I really wanted to take it because they didn't offer it as a sophomore. And ended up, I aced the class, and they did my play for their senior project for that year.
That's wonderful. That is
It was
wonderful.
good. I enjoyed it. I like seeing my words coming out of other people's mouths.
What was the plot behind Christmas Murders?
It were these brother and sister, and they were raised in an orphanage, and they were teased as children by these other kids. And when they grew up and became adults, they sent out invitations for these people to come to this cabin, and they killed them off one by one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I have a kind of a warped sense of humor.
The title identifies the story pretty well. But tell me this, how do you feel when you're actually writing?
It's cathartic. I think a lot of the things that I went through as a kid come out. It comes out in my writing. It comes out in my characters. People who know me well can read a book that I've written and see me in these characters. People don't know me at all. They wonder where I get the characters from.
Oh, yeah.
When I first wrote We Be Made Whole, I had people coming to me and said, "Oh, you had a terrible childhood." They thought the character of KC was me. I was like, "I've never been a prostitute." Never been a prostitute.
KC had a rough life.
And he had a rough life. And I think because I put so much of myself into it, it feels real when they read it. It feels real when I write it. And I always want it to be that way, so that when you read it or when you see it in a play or see it in a movie, you can identify with the characters, because if you can't identify with it, it's kind of a turn-off. It's like it's foreign to you, and I want it to be real to you so that the emotions come out. You laugh when it's funny, you cry when it's sad.
Yes.
You root for the good guy to win, you hate the bad guy, you want him to be defeated. Those kind of emotions. If I don't evoke those kinds of emotions, it's not real to me.
Well, speaking of characters, Casey, for instance, in the book Will You Be Made Whole, I one day, out at lunch, the guy who was behind the counter, as far as I'm concerned, he was Casey. You had identified the characters so well that when I saw this guy, he fit the description, what I felt was the personality, and that story became very real. So you definitely have a gift when it comes to characterizing people. I met them, I knew them, they lived next door, they lived down the street. So, and you answered some questions for me that I didn't have before when I read your book.
Good. Okay. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good. I remember one time when we did the play, a good friend of mine, Diane Hamilton, she was my #1 assistant, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, we were in Kinko's trying to print programs, and somebody came up to me and we started talking about writing. And they go to church, and so we started talking about this particular play, Will You Be Made Whole, and how I came up with the characters and what the story was about. And the person was a budding writer, so he says to me, "So what's your inspiration for these kinds of stories and this kind of writing?" And I said, "The Holy Ghost." And he said, "No, really." Like he didn't believe what I said. So okay, right. So that was it. Diane and I, we just got the biggest laugh out of it. I mean, we had to be, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We were already tired. Yeah. We had a long rehearsal that day, and we were doing these programs, and we just laughed about that the rest of the night till like 4 o'clock.
I can imagine, because the characters, even for me when I read your book, I wondered the same question that man asked you. Were they in his neighborhood? Is one of these characters Eric? The questions, because their stories just so real.
Really, they have to be relatable for me. That's my main goal, is to make them relatable. Like you said, you saw this guy in the restaurant, and it was somebody you identified already. You read the character, and you went out and you saw somebody that looked like him. My thing, when I created this story, it's funny where you get inspiration from. Years ago, there was this show on television called Touched by an Angel. Yes. And we were sitting there, Diane and I, we were watching it, and they were talking about street people. But in that hour time frame, they could only go so far, and they could only be so contained with the story they were telling. And so we talked about it after the show was over. We talked about what happens when it goes further than that.
Yes.
And that's what inspired me to do We Be Made Whole. And I started crafting these characters and where did they come from?
Yes.
What caused them to be prostitutes? What caused
Yes.
them to be drug addicts? You know, people don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be
That's
homeless.
Right. That's right. That's
People
right.
will be homeless today. So what makes that happen? What causes people to get all these different street identities
Yes.
that we may walk by every day and think,
Yes.
oh, that poor thing, you know.
Yes.
And so that's the story that I started exploring, and that's where Alabaster Box came from, and that's where the inspiration for If I Should Die Before I Wake came from, because all the different characters kept folding into other stories.
Yes. And another thing about your writings, at least the ones I read, there's always a spiritual opportunity in each of these persons' lives, and many times people are discounted by those from the outside looking out and not realizing that these people have the same right as they have for their spiritual journey. So that was something that reminded me to look at each person as a child of God, no matter what condition they're in.
That's interesting that you say that, because after we first did We Be Made Whole, we did it 5 different times, but after we first did it, a lot of people remarked the same thing, that they wouldn't look at a street person, a person on the street, the same way again,
Yes.
without wondering where they came from and what caused them to be in the condition that they were in.
Exactly. Now, when and where do you do your best writing?
Wherever I can do it. Most of the time, when I'm starting to craft a story, it comes out in the car, it comes out when I'm walking in the street, it comes out in the mall, and I talk to myself a lot. So I talk to myself in character. So I keep the story in my head, I keep the characters in my head until I can get to a place where I can write them down. When it gets intense and when the writing has to just like plow forward until it's finished, I don't answer the phone. I come in here, I don't answer the phone, I don't have TV on. A lot of writers that I know, they have music playing when they write. I can't have distractions. I can't have music, I can't have noise.
Yeah.
I just have to be in my head, I have to be with my characters and let them talk, really. And there I am, I'm writing down, and a couple 100 pages later I got a story.
That's all right. That's wonderful. Well, I want to ask you, what scene in your writing has made you laugh the hardest or cry the most?
Well, I think the scenes that make me laugh the hardest are the scenes that, you know, because I don't write comedy, but you know from your own experience, every day something will happen that's funny, just because it's funny. So I think when I'm writing a scene of a human experience and somebody does something that is practical, but it's funny, it makes me laugh, because when you can write it down and describe it in the writing, the way it happens, it's funny. So I laughed to myself. I was writing a book. I was in Indianapolis, where my mom lives, and I was in the room and I was working on The Mansion. And no noise, and I'm in the room, door closed, and I'm typing, and I'm in my head with all these characters, and I'm laughing, and I'm talking in characters' voices, and I'm laughing to myself, and I'm crying, and I'm making myself cry, and I'm laughing. And my mother knocks on the door. She says, "Is somebody in there?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, no, nobody's in here. I'm writing." So I kind of get into it because I have to be every character. Because if to me, you know, the female character, the old lady, the old man, the baby, you have to be all these different things to make it, for me, make it real, to make it live, to make it breathe. I think one of the scenes that you asked, what made me cry the most. It was a scene where I was writing, this woman was in the car with her niece, and the niece was in a car seat in the back of the car, and she gets in a car accident, and the car crashes into her, and the niece in the car seat goes flying forward. And I had to write that scene. That was hard for me to do that, because after I did that, I had to go and take a drive. I got in the car. After I wrote that scene, I took a drive, and I had to get that out of my head, because seeing that visually and writing it down, it took a lot to do that, to kill this baby.
That was pretty rough.
Yeah, it was
but
rough.
That's part of life.
But when you read it, you get so impacted into it
Yes.
And you feel what I felt writing it.
Yes.
And that makes it all worth it.
Well, what advice would you give other writers?
Keep writing. That's the advice I got. Read as much as you can. Pick up writing magazines. Read what other people are writing. Not to pattern yourself after them, but to know what you like for yourself. Because I write what I like to read, which is human experience, reality, things that are relatable. So that's how I write. I can't do science fiction. I can't do supernatural. I can't do, my friend Diana talk about all the time, she loves those Harlequin romances. I can't write that. To me, that's not real. You know?
I understand.
So I write what I like to read, and so for other writers, I would say write what you like to read, because then you could really get into it. You can really dig into the characters and find out what makes them tick, what makes them live, and if it lives for you as a writer, it's going to live for the person that's reading.
Okay, I have another question. I want to ask you, what new revelations are in your life or you see coming in your life?
Well, I'm turning an interesting corner right now because of the books that I've done, the plays that I've done, working with other people. What's happening as of late, this last project that I did with Pastor Shields, working on the movie and working on the book, I've got people now coming to me and they're wanting me to mentor them and to guide them in the writing process and what's good and what's not, and how to make it happen as far as publishing goes. And the interesting thing is I never had a mentor. I kind of stumbled through all of this. And the writing and the publishing and the movies and the plays, I picked up stuff and I read it and I was like, oh, I can do that. And God inspired, I was able to get good people to work with, actors and musicians and camera people and everybody, and come along with me on this journey, because people don't want to go with anybody that doesn't have a vision. So if you have a vision, if you can see the end, like God sees the end from the beginning. So He made us in His own image. So if we can see what the end product is going to be, people catch that vision. They get excited with you.
That's true.
And so as far as the next thing for me, I think people are getting excited and they want me to help them do whatever they're doing. Give them information about writing, give them information about publishing. And reluctantly, I think I'm moving into the mentorship. I say reluctantly because I'm still trying to get there. And I'm still trying to make the connections, and I'm trying to make it happen with my own career goals. So reluctantly, like I said, I'm going to a place where I don't mind giving the advice and giving the help, because that I never had. But I'm hoping it to be rewarding.
Well, that is wonderful. Eric, you certainly are a person who is living their life by divine design, and I'm so grateful for this time we had a chance to talk to you, and I thank you again for your time. Much success.
Thank you.
Much success.
Thank you.
Thank you again for watching New Revelations TV, Life, Work, and Love by Divine Design.
I just wanted to say a little bit about The Shepherd Must Smell Like the Sheep, which is the last project that I worked on. This is the book I worked on with Pastor William Shields. This book is available on Amazon.com. It's also available on Kindle for Amazon. And this was the movie that we premiered at the Fox Theater in November of 2011, Sunday Morning Rapture. It's also available on Amazon.com, Sunday Morning Rapture. And these three books are a series. I call it the Wholeness series. Will You Be Made Whole, which is the play that we did, Alabaster Box, and If I Should Die Before I Wake. These are all available on Kindle and on Amazon. And the fourth one in the series, An Issue of Blood, I'm still working on. Under the pen name Eric Ayala, Darkness in the Mirror and Arlington Heights, also available on Amazon.com and Kindle. And under the pen name Louis Erickson, out right now is Outcast, and coming in December of 2013, Avenging Alex.
I never knew got a chance to meet Brother David, but I got a feeling feeling that we got just a couple things in common. And I know what I mean to say is that we've seen our separate trials, but at the end of them all, we've seen total victory. I never knew I got a chance to meet Brother Moses, but I got a feeling that we got a couple things in common. And I know what I mean to say is that we sing the hands of bondage, but at the end of the road, it led us to the promised land, delivered from the silent frustrations of my mind. When you broke through the shadows of the past I left behind, when the enemy came running, ranting and roaring, Lord, you showed yourself strong in the midst